I take it in English because we have an international guest here, Todd Beane. We have tried now to get Johan Cruyff to Norway in, I think, 4 years. And now we have succeeded almost to get Johan Cruyff here, but we have his director in his company, Mr. Todd Beane. I will just tell something about Todd Beane. He played football in the US, professional. He has an A-license coach in the Federation of US. He is a coach in youth, in university, and professional. He has a master's degree in education in Stanford University. And now he is international director for Cruyff Football. And what are Cruyff Football doing? They are helping clubs, environments to get better. They have been to Ajax, that's the first job of course, and Pretoria in South Africa, and in Melbourne, and now last year in Chivas. So why did Johan Cruyff employ Todd Beane? Johan Cruyff, he wanted to have a guy outside Catalonia and Holland, but he has to know professional football and education. And that's why Todd Beane has been in Cruyff Football since, what time did you start it? 2002. Oh, 02, yeah. So now it's 11 years. So please, Mr. Todd Beane.
Maybe get the microphone maybe. Is it working? Working? You can hear? I want to thank the Cupfinaleseminaret and the people that have brought me here, so thank you very much for the invitation. And a sunny day. It's a little colder than my home in Barcelona, but it's good to see the number of people that come out. And if I understand correctly, it's a good representation of all of Norwegian football and internationally as well, in terms of youth development, in terms of professional development, top coaches. And I think that's good because I think the message may resonate at some level with each of you. And really I'm a messenger in the sense that what we've been able to do is create a kind of an exclusive video for you as an audience of Johan Cruyff speaking to the issues. And all I'm going to do today over the next hour is facilitate that conversation, get you involved in some thinking about some of the paradigm shifts that we'd like you to think about in terms of developing top talents, and also hear directly from Johan Cruyff to reinforce his vision. Now, I'm not here to represent Mourinho's vision, or Wenger, or any other federation, or Dutch federation, or Spanish federation, or US, or anything. Really what I'm going to say to you is the way that at Cruyff Football, we look at football. The way that we look, or he looks, specifically my boss, Johan Cruyff, looks at development. It's not to say it's the only way. Hopefully it's not the only way, because there are many interpretations. But I'm not going to be political and try to make it seem that this is a one-size-fits-all. We're in the business of, and Johan has always been in the business of, elite football. And elite football is elite talent development. Elite talent development is different than the social parameters that we operate when we're working in the Cruyff Foundation. You saw a little bit of the video. The Cruyff Foundation is dedicated specifically to helping children, particularly children underserved or handicapped children, participate in sport. And so that's a social initiative, and it's an inclusive initiative. If you look at the Cruyff Institute, which I was lucky to be part of for several years, the agenda there for Johan was to allow athletes of all, not just footballers, athletes, men and women of all sports, to balance a commitment to sport without being shut out from their academic studies. And so to do that, we felt we need to create a new institution that is now in about 11 sites around the world and throughout the first site in Holland. And then the Cruyff Classics is simple. It's just a retail thing that has shoes, so we won't talk about that. But I want to talk today about Cruyff Football, and this is where I want to make the distinction, because at Cruyff Football, Johan has always been involved with elite training, talent development, the type of talent that can go out and represent Norway, the type of talent that can go out and represent Barcelona, Ajax, Holland, and Spain. This is the type of talent we're looking at, and this is the type of program that we're developing. So with that in mind, the fundamental question we ask with any club or organization, including of federations, is, are you developing top talents? Are you really developing the type of players that can step onto the international stage or at the highest club level and perform under pressure? And to do so, we look at these types of names. And I choose these names as opposed to others because these are the names that Johan has directly influenced. In coaching youth, in coaching at Ajax, in coaching in Barcelona. The list is a lot longer than this, but of course I think we would agree that if you had the chance to develop these types of players, it's not a bad list to start with. And so how does Johan look at it then? Well, the goal is very simple. It's easy to put in a PowerPoint presentation, and that is, we always think of the holistic development process. So a player has to be very talented. We'll talk more about that. A player has to be intelligent. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But also, and this comes with always with Cruyff, is that he really believes that a player has to carry a sense of responsibility to not only the game, to the community, to the children that come to watch, and to the society at large. And they may not be always included, depending on which coach prefers what. But for us at Cruyff Football, a total footballer is one that is talented, intelligent, and responsible. So we reduce this to one philosophy of Johan's, which is the philosophy that the ideal is quality and results. And you can read the quote yourself there. Having just quality without results in Premier level football isn't going to take you very far. But on the other hand, if you just focus on results in youth football, you may be missing out on quality that is right in front of you. Maybe somebody like a Bergkamp, who was twice on his way out of Ajax, but saved by Johan's advice, would have been lost to the football world. I think Arsenal and the rest of the world might have been a little less for it. Xavis and Iniestas, how many of those boys are left out of a system because they don't impress with size or necessarily speed? And when you as youth coaches are maybe missing talent if you're not looking for it in the way that we would like to define it. Okay, so what I'll do today is walk you through, actually Johan Cruyff via video here, will walk you through this philosophy. Again, it's to wrestle with, it's to argue with, it's to say that this is nonsense or this is something that resonates with me. But at the end of the day, we're going to present what we believe, and Johan will do that himself through a series of videos, each about 6 minutes long. And the first one is going to be dealing with total footballer. What, in our eyes, is a total footballer? We'll talk about that and define that. Secondly, in order to accomplish that our organizations are developing the types of players that you saw there, the Marco van Bastens, the Dennis Bergkamps and others, the Leo Messis and the Xavis and the Iniestas of the world, how do we have to train them to be more efficient? Thirdly, how do you as coaches, or in the coaches that we work with, how do we organize coaches, which is, I think, fundamentally different than the way that probably 99% of the clubs around the world are doing that today. And then finally, we noticed that in order for this football-first philosophy to flourish in any organization, be it a federation, or be it a club, or be it an amateur club, the structure of the organization has to allow for football people to develop footballers and leave politics aside, which is quite difficult, of course, for those of you who are in football, you know. So let me just go first to the video, about a 6-minute video, and Johan will be addressing his own youth, how he came to be in the world of football, growing up in the shadows of the Amsterdam Arena, or not the Amsterdam Arena, where Ajax used to play in the old neighborhood he grew up in.
That was beautiful because when the game was there, everybody was coming, parking, walking with the buses, and it was a very fantastic ambience. And of course, your dreams was one day I'll be there. I lived very nearby, so we could put the flags up. We helped with the field, and it was a fantastic experience. No. We were playing with all my friends on the street all the time. And maybe the only difference is that I was physically very, very small. So my handling for the ball should be very quick. Otherwise, well, you fell on the ground and the stones will hurt. So you develop some skills out of a necessity. So you need it to have a good control. Otherwise, you will hurt yourself. So it was always playing on the street and having fun all the time. It teaches you a lot because so here's the street and here's where you walk. So, I mean, if you go in there, you could fall over, but you can play a 1-2 with the stones. I mean, if somebody defends there and you just hit the ball against the stone wall, put it that way, you can do a 1-2 and do it. And so you can create a lot of things out of nothing. And that's where people laugh, or that's where you learn with somebody who does something or show you something, and you see, hey, you play to the world where we go to. So you got all kind of qualities doing one, let's say, crazy thing. At that time I had a fantastic coach. I think everything what we tried to do, probably he did with me. So yeah, I'm talking out of experience. I was small, but technically I was very good. So he didn't need to show me the technique. He needed to show me or teach me to be stronger. He needed to I was not very fast, so he needed to teach me to sprint. How could I get individually better in certain details? So besides, I control the ball with both foot, I could kick with both foot, so it was not the 100% focus. It was, of course, getting better all the time, but not 100% focus on the things I knew. But he saw that physically I wasn't strong. So what did they do little by little? Physically, get me better, get me stronger. I wasn't fast, which I said already, so I had a period where a sprint coach from the athletics coached me for about 3 months. How to do this, how to do that. So maybe itself is not important, but as a piece it's important, because in a game sometimes you have to sprint. In the game you've got to play not 80 minutes but 90 minutes, so you need to be stronger. But always with your brains, like, don't do something stupid or don't do something which you don't dominate, because you get in problem. And if you think like that, you always get in position, and that's why the position play at the end is very important. The position, where you stand, how you do it, on the field, if you're in the midfield or the ball comes out, you've got to stand there more or less where you think where it will come. It's stupid to be more forwards or more backwards. And all these details, that's what you learn. Basically, the difference between the youth and the top is the speed of handling, speed of decision. So the biggest thing within top football is your brain. You play football, it sounds crazy, but you play football with your head and you use your feet. The quicker you see, the quicker you do things, the quicker you can handle, the more time you have. It's always, and it's a small difference, I know, but there's where the difference is. And that's why you need to have all kinds of different details. Look into the details and then get it out. And when I had these youth coach, I was a good player and all these sort of things, but he always helped me, protect me, to start getting into the other quickness, because if you play with older people, they're quicker than you, they're older than you, so you've got to adjust yourself. So he always, the first 2 months I always played outside right, because sometimes I asked, why do I play outside right? He said, because they can only attack you from one place, because there's the line, they can't attack you from there. So in the beginning I didn't understand, but of course now too. And little by little I went always in the center, because in the center they can attack you from everywhere, so you've got to be quicker, safer, and all these details showed me that it's very important to do it by every detail. Detail of running, detail of physical, detail of this. Everything what you don't focus as a detail is negative. There is a small piece which you don't dominate, let's put it that way. I think that comes from very young, because I always played with bigger people, stronger people, and in the game there's only one ball. So when I came home with the ball, I had to play. Otherwise there was no ball.
Okay, I'd like the next section, we're going to move into a little bit about the definition, our definition of a total footballer. So we have a little bit of use and what that comes through. I want to jump in now to total football, and to do that, I'd just like you to do one thing.
There is not one most important thing. The technique is a very important thing.
You want to stop that?
If you've got technique, you can focus on the other things.
I'm not so good at multitasking. So. Yeah, I'm too old. I can't, drive and do this. Okay, so what I would like to do is, you're just going to do a quick exercise, all of you, and then I'm going to pick on a few of you to come up. So if you really want not to be on stage, then hide and go to the bathroom at this very moment. But I'm going to pick on a few of you, maybe a little diverse, a group that are volunteers to be victims on stage. But before that, you're just going to stand up for 1 second. When you stand up, you're going to just shake hands a couple of times with the people around you. But this time when you do it, I want you to do it with your left hand. This should take about 10 seconds. Are you ready? Stand up, shake a few hands, but do it with your left hand. Okay, now do it with your right hand. Do it a couple more times with your right hand. Back to normal. Okay, thank you very much. It's also nice just to stretch your legs after lunch. Okay? We'll come back to us, we'll come back to this as to why a little bit later, but if you really want some homework, tomorrow morning when you wake up and you put your pants on, you're wearing pants tomorrow morning? Is tomorrow Saturday? Yeah, maybe you're not wearing pants, I don't know. I'll be back in Barcelona tomorrow morning, but next time you go to dress yourself, it sounds silly, try to do it putting the other leg in first. I can guarantee you all put this, I'm not going to demonstrate it here because that would get me in trouble. I'd probably be in Oslo jail. But it's silly. But tomorrow morning, when you put on your pants, think for a second instead of doing it automatically. And just try to put it on the other way. This is almost as awkward. It's more awkward, actually. And it's probably more fun for your wife to watch or your boyfriend or your partner to watch. Because it starts to reprogram a little bit about the way. And this is very important when we talk about the way that we look at football. So now I need, I call them victims, but I really should say participants. I think I just need 3 participants who would like to come up and demonstrate their athletic prowess. Don't all jump at once. I mean, there's got to be, how many are you? There are 500 and something of you, so 3 people can raise their hands. Just 3. I'm going to start picking people. Hey, thank you very much. Victim number 1. I mean participant number 1. I need another one? I need 2 more. We have 2 more? Okay. I've got 2 more. Okay, now we have a competition. Now I know in Norway, well, I don't know this as of last night. I know, are you guys all over 13? Yes. Okay. Because I just learned that maybe there's a rule in Norway that under 13 football we don't use tables or rankings, so I don't want to violate cultural principles. But I happen to present my idea. We actually look at competition as a positive, and you get 3. You want to warm up with 2? Now let's jump right into it. 3. 1, 2, 1, 2. I'll get 2 more. Don't worry. I'm prepared. This is all my budget allows for traveling. Federation pay for these. Okay, step forward. Come right over here. What is your name? Ingvar. Ingvar? Yes. And I'm going to make a really bad name. Ingvar. I say that at least. Ingvar. Breda. Next to Ingvar. Ingvar. Breda. And Kim. Oh, thanks. That's nice. You guys have done it actually well. I've met some other people. It's going to be more difficult. Okay, here we go. It's just competition, but don't worry. I know we love you, regardless if you win or fail, and your self-esteem should not be shattered. But at the same time, just to have some fun, we're going to have a juggling contest. So the objective of the next 30 seconds, let me give you 45 seconds roughly, is just to juggle as best as you know how. I don't know you. I haven't picked you. And the job of the audience in this case, do you have like talent shows on TV that are in Spain and in Holland and everywhere else? Like you've got Norway's Got Talent or the X Factor or these types of things. Consider that you are the voting audience. So you're going to have to determine which of these participants is the best juggler within the next 45 seconds of them showing their skills and talents. Are you ready? Are you nervous? A bit. Okay, well good. Because if you're going to play in the stadium, it holds 50,000. This is just 600. Off we go. All right, 45 seconds, competition. Off you go. You can use your hands, please. But I like the interpretation. Okay, well, we'll compete with the feet next conference. Oh. I can see that you're better with your feet. I think so. Keep trying. There will be a winner, according to the audience.
Kom igjen! Kom igjen!
Okay, and stop. Are you ready to vote? Did you get an idea? I'm not sure they're going to the World Championship of Juggling. I understand today we might have a world champion chess player, no, from Norway. How's that going? I saw on TV today that we have a Norwegian chess competition. I don't know what you call it in Norway, but I don't think that juggling is going to be national level yet. But the audience is going to vote, and I'll do the applause-o-meter. So the more applause that you get, obviously the winner is determined, not by me. So, are you ready? Contestant number one. All of them, very loyal. I like loyalty. That's a good quality, right? Okay, contestant number two, Kim. It's going to be tough, I think. Contestant number three. That's really loyal. Okay, I think we can determine a winner. Thank you very much. Let's give an applause. You stay. You come over here, and I've got a parting gift for you because I do want to self-esteem. This is just signed by Johan 2 days ago for you, personally, for participating. Thank you for participating. Nicely done. I'm sorry that you didn't win the competition, but it's okay because you're going to be glad in a moment that you're still not on stage. Well done. Well done. Okay. Now, this is what I would like you to do as coaches now, is to analyze just a moment where he is in his development. Okay, so could you go again? You've already won, so your self-esteem should be good. You're going to get a better gift than they are. Okay, so that's coming. But you got to earn it first. Okay, so just juggle again, 3 balls, see what you can do. Because obviously you were the best of the 3 according to the audience. Go ahead. Not bad, eh? Keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay, and here's the challenge. If you as coaches, keep trying, this is your team. Somebody can do this, and somebody can't. And it doesn't even necessarily equate with age, because I'm almost 50. So I'm on the veterans, or whatever's after veterans is the team I play for now. I haven't come up with a name yet. Senior citizens almost. Okay? Now stop. Now, you are the analysts now. You're the coaches. You're the experts, not me. So you know where he is in his development. So the question I have for you is, we think of development in terms of knowledge, skills, or character. Let's call character motivation. Knowledge, skills, or motivation, to make it straightforward. Now, is his challenge in terms of not being able to juggle as well as we would like? Is it a challenge of knowledge, a lack of knowledge? You're going to answer in a moment, so think too. Is it a lack of skill? Can he do it? Does he know how to do it as knowledge? Can he do it as skill? Will he do it? Motivation. Now, I want you to pick one of those 3, and then we're going to ask our footballer up here himself what he thinks it is. But you do the analysis. If you get to choose one intervention as a coach for this young man, what would it be? To increase his knowledge, to increase his skill, or to increase his motivation based upon what you see? What would you say?
I think it's a combination, of course.
Yeah.
But in this case, I would have to work my skills.
Okay. Do you know how they go?
You know how they go? In the rhythm?
Yeah.
Not exactly, but I think I'll start with one. Where I have 2 balls in the same hand, and I try to...
Okay, keep going, because now what do you do? I'm just checking your knowledge now. Because I don't care how long you practice. If you don't know how, you're not going to get better as efficiently as knowing how first and then practicing, right? I mean, I can throw you into the bay here. And then if you can't swim, you can say it's motivation. Right? But I'd rather teach you to know how to swim, and then I can say whether you swim better, right? So let me check your knowledge. Do you know in what order they may go for a tradition? I'm not talking about clowns in the circus. I'm just talking, you throw it up.
1, 2, and 3.
You do know.
Yeah.
Okay? So then the skill is practice, so it's a matter of training, right? So if you go ahead and try. So you know how to do it. Throw the first ball up and stop. You don't have to stop. Do that again. Start again. First ball, second ball, and third ball. Not bad. Okay? Now the third question I would ask is it motivation? Well, I don't think so. I'm not going to get into a deep psychological profile today or self-regulation, which we talked about this morning. But I would say the fact that he raised his hand and he was willing to come up here in front of all of you, strangers, and play, I think he's probably motivated. And he looks like an athletic guy that's playing in some sort of organized way or coaching, right? And so I imagine that your motivation is that you would be capable. So I don't ever question that you would be capable of doing this. And I don't question that you'd probably be motivated to do it. I think if you have the knowledge, then it just to be a matter of skills. Okay? So let's see how they analyzed it. Because you said skill, even though I questioned a little bit. How many of you said knowledge would be your intervention? Raise your hand a little higher. Let's see. Okay. Put your hands down. How many of you said you would want to work on his skill? So a repetition of that. More people in agreement. And how many of you raised this question of motivation? Are you his coach? Are you his father? Okay? Now I want to reward you for being up here, and you'll see why this makes sense in terms of development in just a moment. Can we give a round of applause, please? And you get to choose between large and extra large, and we'll give you a Cruyff Football polo shirt.
I think I take a large.
Take a large.
Yeah.
Okay? From Cruyff Football. Thank you very much. And down to Johan. Okay? Yeah. So, this may seem like a silly question, but you have it very well defined what you consider as a club or a group of coaches, what the expectations are? Is it really clear? If I went to your players and I said, tell me what is the ideal footballer according to Rosenberg or quote, amateur club or your coaches, would the players be able to articulate that very clearly to me? And would that be aligned with what you said? I've done this in about 6 different countries. And surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, oftentimes the players have no idea. They just make stuff up. And I said, is it clear from your coach exactly what it means to be a great footballer? And they say, no. I don't know. As coaches, that becomes problematic. I'm a coach. That becomes our responsibility, not theirs. But are the expectations clear? Have you had time to define them? So when we talk about total footballer, we think in our terms of talented, intelligence, multidimension. And this is in different countries treated differently. Players are picked differently. Some coaches believe it's just the talent, forget about the intelligence, forget about behavior, forget about the responsibility. And we see profile players at the highest level of football who are very, very talented, but then they get themselves in trouble because somebody along the line didn't address behavior or they didn't address responsibility. But these are things that you choose, right? So this is what we do. This is our model, and it's much more in depth than this, but for the sake of this conference, we'll leave it here. Okay? When I asked Johan the same question, what is a total footballer? He said these. He said, of course, first comes dominating the ball. If you cannot dominate the ball, it doesn't matter where the other players are positioned. So tactics become irrelevant unless you can dominate the ball. So in his mind, in our mind, dominating the ball is number 1. Movement, he already talked about movement. Explosiveness, obviously we focus a lot of endurance, but it's more than just endurance. It's about proper movement, it's about technique, it's about things that get you those other 89 minutes that you don't have the ball. And then position play. Now most of you out of a federation would call this tactics, but it's a subtle difference. In Dutch it's called position play, translated. And Johan talks about positioning because he sees there's a difference between positioning individually or collectively than the tactics you may use on a given day. So we emphasize in working with our players personal position play and collective position play, working on principles of play more than we work on just a given system or a given strategy, which would be a tactic we may use if it's raining, if we're home, we're away, we're on a poor pitch, we're on a good pitch. Those tactics are not, it's going to be necessarily, it's going to be a variable, but good positioning can be applied to any of the circumstances which a player finds them. And then that's not enough, but I do know, having traveled, a lot of clubs stop there. Just evaluating players on whether they can play. That's skills. But as Johan speaks to, a a lot about, he talks about behavior. And for those of you who have been paying attention with the era of Johan advising in Barcelona, I was lucky enough to be part of that with Laporte as president and Pep Guardiola, Frank Rijkaard first, and Pep Guardiola. And you want to know why those coaches were selected for Barcelona? Because I was there and the recommendations were made, and Laporte took those recommendations to heart, was the quadrant of behavior. There are a lot of brilliant coaches out in the world that can play any sort of system. But one, is the coach aligned with what the club believes to be its values? And I see many clubs, and you know them in the world, they just go from club to club to club to club to club. And we were in Chivas, the owner has gone through 20 coaches in 10 seasons. How do you establish an identity? Whose rules of behavior? What's the red line through the organization? It's almost impossible because it changes every 5 months. Now you look at the 2 clubs that Johan has been involved in, Ajax. There's a system that they have, yes. There's a style of play. There's principles of play. On good years, they do it better than others. But you look for coaches that are in line with the organization's philosophy rather than just pick a coach and then have him change the organization. This is the philosophy of Johan Cruyff. Where else did he go? Barcelona. You look at the success of Barcelona, the seeds of that organization were planted in 1989 when he went to implement this type of philosophy. And then, for the most part, they've stayed pretty true to this philosophy. And particularly since 2002, Rijkaard was selected because he understands the system of play, but more so because he's the type of gentleman that will respect sport and there be good for the image of a club who prides itself on més que un club, more than a club. Pep Guardiola was selected for the same reason. Talented player, intellectual, responsible, and the type of guy who will shake your hand in defeat as he will in victory. That, according to Johan Cruyff, is equally important as the result that happened on the weekend. Okay? And you know the pressure behind those. And then finally, the last 2 are preparation and mindset. Preparation we define as sleep, study, and nutrition, and there's better experts in this audience than I to talk about what the required sleep patterns are. But to give you an example, in South Africa we were there, and the boys, because of the nature of the residence hall, were sleeping 6 hours a day in their teenage years. Well, you don't have to be an expert in sleep to understand that's about 2 hours, if not 3 hours short of what they need to perform at a maximum level. Never mind that when the boys went away on the weekends, they oftentimes didn't eat from Friday till Monday because the kids are fed in school, and going home is 50-50 as to whether they may get a meal at all or a decent meal for sure. And then finally, mindset. And I don't want to go too much into psychology because that puts a lot of people off except for the psychologists. But mindset is more about something you want to talk about, is about the ability to be ambitious. Of course, the goals that you set, we talk about a lot about the effort that's required through dedication. And then the resilience, which is about elite athletes are about. Not all of the trajectory goes like this. Not for Messi, not for Ronaldo, not for any of the best in the world. It's never that way. But how have they responded to, for example, injury and other things? Okay? So with this in mind, how do we do this? We record this. We set up screens in all of these areas. So we can do ball control screens, we can do movement screens, we can do screens meaning tests, and we compile that data into a format that may look like this, so that there can be no misunderstanding between player and parent and coach, and if you're at Ajax or Barcelona, agent or representative, because they come into play quite early in those big clubs. There can be no misunderstanding. It isn't just that coach likes me or coach doesn't like me or he likes him instead of me, because those are the conversations that come with disappointment. We try to bring it to transparency and said, we've told you we will define you in terms of these 6 quadrants. We've trained you to the best of our ability. We've identified weaknesses and strengths and prioritized your training throughout our program in our club. And therefore, we can track your progress from the baseline moment you enter to our club through the process as you mature and work your way to your dream, which would be obviously to play for the first team. And we bring that forward so that the player, in a self-regulatory way, can participate and take ownership. So the player is the protagonist of his development, and the coaches are facilitating that process. I'll play the next video because Johan will speak to you directly about how he feels about total footballers. And so on.
Give 100%. There is not one most important thing, but technique is a very important thing. If you got technique, you can focus on the other things. Passing and receiving is got to do with speed of the game. It's got to do where you place it, left foot, right foot. So you must be capable of controlling left foot, right foot, and passing left foot, right foot. Because you've got to, always got to pass on the other side than the opponent is. Second, the speed of the ball is very important, because with the speed of the ball you can get the bounces, but the most important thing is that the brain of the receiver is, when the ball goes quick, his handling is quick. So the attention, the difficulty of an easy ball is the easy ball. Because you can do it without being concentrated. And there are the biggest mistakes in the simple thing. Because the ball control comes in front of passing, in front of anything else. So if you don't control the ball well, you need too much time to correct it. So if you control it well, you buy time. If you've got time, you can get in your control, go wherever you want, because you've seen it and you can control it. As soon as if you cannot do it, you lose too much. And if your control is not good because you don't understand the basics, it's always a problem for your passing, because you don't know where to pass. So it's always, it's never one way road. It's always up and down. So it's a directly connection, controlling with passing. If one of them is wrong, the rendement, the quality and the continuity of the game is always a problem. The movement and the running is something where a technical player don't think about. He thinks about the ball, what the ball can do, up and down and twist and whatever. But you've got to run 90 minutes. You've got to be physically in a certain way that not all the balls come right here. You've got to do all kind of things, which means that all these things, what's got nothing to do with the ball. And once again, there's one ball for 22 players. So a lot of times you don't have the ball. You must be capable to do a lot of other things. So one is speed, a long ball, one is heading, jumping. I mean, you always need your body to control it. And every detail which you don't have 100%, your 100%, it's a deficit. Position is in everything. If you control a ball and you do it with your wrong foot, you don't see anything. So if you play it that way, you pass me the ball and I do it like this, I mean, I cannot go. So I've got to put myself in a position, your body in a position, so in my control I can see the field. Sometimes, of course, it's not like that. Then, when you pass me the ball, I've got to pass the ball to somebody who, yes, has got the vision. So it looks like losing time, but it's not losing time. It's the passing, and then somebody else can do the continuation. Another thing in position is that you must be in position to receive the ball. That's other thing of position. Staying on the field where you need it, whatever position you play, is one of the most important things. I think in football maybe you don't see it as good as in other sports, but behavior is one of the most important things. That doesn't mean that you can be hard, you can be good. Respect. You can see it sometimes with rugby. You see it that people, they go in and they go against each other. And when it's finished, it's finished. I mean, in the game, you've got to do it because it's part of the game. But respect for the other. So don't do idiot things. Don't do crazy things. Do it as a positive way, because there, I think when you've got these two habits, not only in football, but for the rest of your life. If you've got these habits, you've got fantastic habits. Well, I think the first mindset of a footballer is to get better all the time. That's the first thing. If I ask some player, whatever good he is, show me what you can, he always shows me what he dominates, which means that I know what he doesn't dominate. So what he shows me, I don't care. I have a look what he didn't show. So we know more or less where his difficulties is. Mindset is how you approach something to learn. Are you capable of learning? A mindset is, are you afraid to make mistakes? No, mistakes. You've got to try things, because as soon as you make a mistake and you learn from it, you learn something. So a mistake is not something negative. No, a mistake you've got to transfer into positive. That's all mindset. A mindset is, I've got to be fit when the referee whistles. Not when I'm fit, on Monday or Tuesday. No, I'm fit that if the game and the referee is there at 12 o'clock on Saturday, I've got to be fit 12 o'clock on Saturday. I mean, it's got no sense to be fit on Monday. I mean, it looks strange what I said, but it's something from inside, something from your mind, and you can prepare people.
Okay, do me a favor, stand up just a moment again. We're going to play a little catch here, because I like to play games, but this time I have to get my training suit on, so let me get rid of this. I never wear these except for to respect you, so I wanted to show you. That jacket goes back to a closet somewhere in Barcelona until the next year. So I found this one. This seems appropriate. I know it's not the one you'll wear right away, but it seemed a little nicer than that. So I got to get my training suit on, respectful of my hosts here. Okay? We're just going to play catch. Well, we were going to play catch. Is it because I grew up playing baseball as well in the United States? You don't do any hand-eye sports? Again, let's try it again. There we go. Back again. Are you both Norwegian, or I know one of you is English for sure. Let's try it again. We can do better than that. Oh, there we go. And play back. Whoa, hello. Off the wall. Deep. Now that is very nice. I don't know if that's polite or just Norwegian. It's like, I will let out somebody else catch. I don't want to stand out. Now let's play catch the American way. Ready? Catch it and go for it. There you go. Oh. That's the English way. That's what they do in England. You know, screw you. I don't care if you go to the hospital. I'm going to the bar. Oh, we got two. There we go. Well done. Okay. One more. And let's just double it up just to make sure we're paying attention. Oh, that one went unnoticed. Nice catch. Thank you. Okay? Now, you have a seat for cement. You're all brilliant observationists, right? Because you're all coaches, right? So it's easy to determine talent, and it's easy to determine weakness. What do you notice about what I did? What do you notice? Give me some observations about what happened. I threw a ball, yeah? Simple, right? Let me ask you this question. How many times did I throw the ball with the right hand, and how many times did I throw the ball with the left hand? Anybody? Don't be shy. Does anybody know? Except for the first one. I threw with the left. Right? It's difficult. He's English, but he's polite about it. Right? I was in England for a year down in Brighton area. Very polite. They kick you like dogs, but they're very polite when they pick you up. Well, I'll show you. I still have it. The memories. It wasn't a postcard I brought back. It's Achilles' scar right there. Okay? Once. Now here's the challenge as coaches. Johan Cruyff is one person I've met. I have the fortune to work with some top people in the game, and having at least spoken with them. When you go to a game with Johan Cruyff, in first 10 minutes, you get a glass of wine now, and you're sitting up in a nice section, usually next to someone like Platini or someone else, or in the Ajax, wherever else. And in 10 minutes, when you don't think he's been paying attention, he can tell you just about everything about 22 players on the field as to what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, whether he uses his left foot, how many times he passes back. He's like that statistician team out here that you have. But it's in his head. And I liken that for some people, that's not me, But for some people, they're like that. The gentleman who's playing, I see online, that's playing chess, is probably thinking, I don't know, 10, 12, 15, 20 moves in advance, and they see every possibility. That's not me. I'm just trying to figure out if my pawn can go forward or diagonally, right? But I've seen this a lot in coaching. How good are you really at noticing the details? And if we're not that good, how do we get better? And if we're not that good and we don't notice little details like that, then you can run into a situation where you've coached a boy, or he's been at your club for so long, and he can be 16 years old and not be able to hit a 10-meter pass with his non-preferred foot. I know because that just happened at Ajax. We just trained the boys and did isolated skills, and one of the isolated ball skills tests was to knock the ball 10 meters through cones. Ideal, less than ideal, quite horrible with the cones. This is a player that's probably 2 years away from playing with Frank de Boer. And yet nobody along the system ever isolated that skill enough to recognize that boy's been hiding since he was 8 years old, the fact that he can't, he's left-footed actually, so he can't hit a ball, such that the other guys were laughing and having fun, and he's a good sense of humor about it. But he's 2 years away from playing top-flight football, and he can't play a 10-meter pass with his non-preferred foot. That will be exploited. Maybe not at 12 years old where he was the best, or 13 or 14 or 16, because you can get away with a lot of that, but it's going to be exploited sooner or later, right? So are your trainings really as efficient as you like them to be? This is what I've found in the world, that teams are divided by under 18 or whatever the names you give them or whatever the ages you give them. A coach is assigned, and we don't look at it that way. If there's one team, we look at 20 individuals that need to get what Johan said, their 100%, from baseline to improvement while they're in your charge. It's not one team, because I could win the cup in a youth level under 12 and not produce any improvement in my players in terms of the qualities that I put on that board. I'm going to walk away feeling pretty good. I've got a medal on my chest that says I'm an under 12 champion of Norway coach, but I haven't actually improved the performance of my players one at a time in terms of skills that's going to carry them toward their dream. It happens, and it happens a lot. So we look at this, functional training. The weekend, the federation says that you have to play as a team. But here's the interesting thing. They don't tell you that you have to train completely as a team all week. We just do it that way. With the exception of what position? What position do we think is so much different than the rest that we actually give them their own coach? Goalkeepers. If you're a coach like me, when I was young, I was like, yeah, take the goalkeeper. I don't know what you do, but just make sure when he comes back, he knows how to stop the ball. Right? It's not, I'm making fun of myself, but I think some of you do the same thing, because I've seen it. We consider to be the skills required to play that position so specialized and so unique and so worth developing that we just send them off on their own. And then, interestingly enough, we take the other 19, or there's 2 keepers in a team of 20, the other 18 players, and we group them together into this mob and think that they're all the same except for the keepers. Well, I know keepers are a little, strange in the head, but that's not really the way that it works, is it, in skill development? So we look at it and say, if you've got coaches now, let's say I have a head coach and assistant coach for under 18, I have a head coach and assistant coach for under 17, I've got 4 coaches and 40 players. I don't have to train 20 and 20, and we don't at Ajax. I've got Jaap Stam working with defenders. Now I've got some good people, we've got some good people working with these guys. Jaap Stam working with some defenders in that team of 4. Right? We've got Brian Warwick working with wingers. Yes, we have a goalkeeper coach, and we've got Wim Young working with the team. So we can creatively follow our own rules in training to prepare for the way that the federation says, and football says, we have to play on the weekend. But I'm surprised how few clubs, or how many clubs just follow along. If we play as a team, we have to train in this ideology. Okay? And then, I'm not going to go too much into this because this is very specific, but obviously, we work, obviously it's age dependent, and different phases of development require different focus. Skillful players develop at 8 to 12, and you work a little bit more on the system, a little bit more on the formation. You become a little bit more specific in the position as they get older. And of course, you create the training plans, and then the training components are different. Almost every club I've been to runs a training session the same way, because this is the way I learned. Warm up, some sort of non-directional game, some sort of directional game, some sort of bigger thing, and a warm down. My 6-year-old does that. Do you think my 6-year-old has to warm up? Really? I could bend him in half, throw him in the freezer, right? And he would be ready to play. But we just do that because that's what the first team does, right? He's elastic. I would rather have him have the ball. I don't give him to the physio to run around the thing. Field 20 minutes. What does that do? That's 20 minutes that I've opted to have him not touch the ball, for example. Little details like this, as Johan says, come into play because when you multiply that by 10 years or 12 years and by the number of coaches that the player has, the number of training sessions, the number of hour and a half or 2 hour sessions that he runs, those 20 minutes times 10 years times 3 times a week, it adds up to months of training missed out on of various options that might have been done. Okay? Now, the final ones I want to just introduce here was another video is about coaching, and I'll come back to that in just a moment after the video.
Well, first of all, the ball must be your friend. I mean, when the ball is your enemy, you like to stop it and it goes nowhere, it's nothing. So the technical training is very important. So you can do the things what you like. We know football is a game of mistakes, so you can allow mistakes. But the good thing about youth is that you can always try something new. You must try something new. You've got to try it out, and as soon as you tried something out, you know it will not be the best thing. It would be if you shoot with your left foot. Well, it will not go perfectly, but in the training and try to get it better, training all the time, it will get better because everybody who trains always gets better. If it's enough, we never know. We always can find out. But the enjoyment that maybe a month ago you couldn't shoot with your left foot, and now next month you can shoot with your left foot. I said, this satisfaction for yourself, I think is the most important thing. And this you can do in every detail. I think in general, if you talk about this age, is showing them what to do. Don't talk too much because the information we have from the schools within the capacity of the brains is not they understand what you say. What they perfectly in is copyate what you do. So show them what they have to do and they will do it. In questions of distances and all these sort of things, I think don't make it too difficult in the beginning because what's a big field for 18 to 12 is a small field from 18 to 20 because we're all bigger. In one step we're there, when normally we need 3 steps. So it's, but basically whatever you do, whatever exercise you do, it must be technical and you've got to show it. Well, I think that the most important for a coach in this age is using their eyes. Everybody's got to use their eyes, but I mean, because one is small, one is big, one is strong, one is not strong. I mean, there are so many differences there. And what you have to see is that not only the strongest is the best. No, he's the stronger, and that's why he's better today than this one. We've got a system where a lot of age group together, train together, which means that you can go with people through the quality of football, not the quality of strongness, speed, and all these sort of things. So there, it's really getting very interested, and a lot of times they said, well, you're just a coach. Yeah, but a coach for the first team is different than from this, than the youth trainer or whatever. I mean, this is a very difficult group because there you can make a lot of mistakes. I was with Ajax when Bergkamp were more or less age, and Bergkamp was from a fantastic family, very nice, very organized, and yes, football we played on the street, so yeah, there were all kind of people, and he had a lot of qualities, but it always had difficulties in the first year because there we had a 2 years program. So the first year they said, well, he's not good enough. And then the second year he was the best from everybody because then, yeah, his quality came out. But all the time we saw his basic quality, his basic quality. Okay, he didn't play too well, but what means play? Play well. He didn't do what he last year did, maybe not. But the next year he will do such a lot of things, such a quality, and always come back to, that's the main thing, the speed of handling. The speed of handling it was perfect. And always there was a phase within his life that he had to do something better. And he did, always a second year, which is a little slower. Until he was strong. After 16, 17 years, then I think in 1 year or less than 1 year, he came from the second team in the youth to the first team playing international. So I think the most important thing in that age is use your eyes. Don't send somebody away too quick, especially when he technically is very good. It's a very difficult phase because you've got to see a lot of things together. First of all, it's the player, it's quality of the player. Then, the danger that a good player has. He's got a representative. If it's football, there's money involved, and it's football. He's got family who probably sees the golden boat coming by. There are girls who like to be involved in what kind of sense, a lot of senses, a lot of things who are involved. And there, the discipline, the dedication is mindset, you could say in one word, is a very important thing that he always will do what he has to do. So the coach there, he's got to be not only a coach of football, he should be a coach of a person, a development of a person. What did he think, where he comes from, what he does, what his examples, what is... There are hundreds of things, and the pity is that we know that there are so many players who won't get there just because of one crazy, stupid, small thing. And that's a pity. He's got the quality, but then as a coach, be alert on all kind of details and help people. But because if you want or not, it's from a boy to a man. And if you're a man, there are a lot of things in your mind. So it could be a diverse things what you've got to look at. And then individually. And probably, of course, football. If it's football, you can see if somebody plays well or not well. You can see if somebody's physically well or not well. These sort of things, they should have been learned, let's put it that way, in their previous time. But you have got to point always the points over the E. Which means that playing good is not enough. You have to win. The next phase is to prepare them to win. Prepare them to get the most benefit out of the qualities they have, whatever there are.
Okay, we're coming to the close. I'll talk just briefly, quickly about coaching and a couple of comments about organization, but since you're coaches, I don't want to go too much into organization. Now, as I mentioned before, are you working in your club, be it amateur or professional, as efficiently as possible? And have you asked yourself that question, or are you just working the way that they used to work before you arrived? Right? It's always, I've heard this so many times, it's just always been that way. Yeah, well, when I understand that they used to put leeches on people when they were ill to suck the blood out of them. I don't see, thankfully my doctor doesn't do too much of that anymore. My doctor said, yeah, we're going to put leeches on you, or we're going to zap you with some sort of, things that make your brain go wild, because it's always been that way. No other industry does that. The world was flat for a while until we decided it was round somehow. Sun around the earth. But I can't tell you, and I'm part of that culture, I'm not sure teachers are the most innovative. I'm not sure coaches are the most embracing of innovation. Because in some sense, it undermines the way that we were raised. So most teachers were successful in school. So guess what? It worked for them, so they'll replicate it because it should work for the next generation. How many dropouts are actually teaching? That would be good. I dropped out of school and now I'm a teacher. They have a good advantage. They know of everything that didn't work. I became a teacher, but I got good grades, so I just initially started reinforcing what I'd done. But that was years before. And I think I'm afraid in football, maybe we do this too often. Maybe we do this too often. It's just the way it's always been. And I had a Scottish coach. I think we had one ball, and we saw it like on Saturday. All right? Because he grew up chasing through the, I don't know what they do up there, running against the wind in Scotland, in the rain. So, you know what? They were fit. And she said he was good. He played professionally. She said, well, we only had one ball, and we were lucky to have that ball. Right? That doesn't necessarily mean they have the most technical players in Scotland, with all due respect to Scotland. Okay? So this is how we mentioned before, and I'll just go briefly, and we'll finish up with a 2-minute video of Johan, and I'll say one final word and get you on to your lunch break. Okay? And I made reference to this. We call this kingdom coaching, not because it's out of malice, but because it's out of structural organization. You create a team and you put a coach to that. And if you're lucky, you give them an assistant coach. And it looks like that on the left-hand side. Quite normal, quite logical, 20 boys a coach, 20 boys a coach and assistant, until you get to the first team. And then what happens? More resources, more energy, more focus, more pressure. Then all of a sudden we put a team of coaches working collaboratively around them to facilitate their movement, their physio, their cardio, their medical, all of that. So at that point we think we've got resources, so we're going to have 5 coaches around the first team, all trying to maximize the potential of each and every player. But at the youth level we don't think we can do that because we often use the case of money. But it's not the case. 3 teams, 6 coaches in a traditional environment. Assistant for each one, so that gives you 6. Okay? What happens if you put them in wheels and put them with 3 teams together? It gives you 60 players and 6 coaches. I'm not asking for more money from the president or from the society or from whoever who funds this, from the sponsors. I'm just restructuring. Because this structure here requires that a coach knows an awful lot about technical, tactical, physical, etc., etc. How many of you know all that? I don't. Johan doesn't. I don't think there's that many. You may know a little bit, and you can do it out of necessity. But if you wake up in the morning, I bet you every one of you as a coach prefers to coach technical play, or prefers to coach a certain age group, or prefers to coach tactical position play, or prefers to choose physio or movement or strength and coordination. If you were really asked to go with what you wanted to do and not what you had to do, wouldn't you be able to say, I really enjoy working with technical development players? I think most of you might. You can do all of that. But now what happens if we don't put that burden on you and say, within a team of 4 or 6 coaches, let's just make sure the coaches we have together, without adding any, have independent specialties, but also are passionate about what they do because we're going to maximize the potential of the coaching staff. Right? So then this makes sense that one would be working with goalies, another one may be physio, another one working more that likes the technical instruction a little bit better, another one that likes more about the tactical position play, how to build out of the back, how to attack through the wings, or whatever you like. Because usually you know in yourself that you have a specialty of all specialties, and if we can get that out of you on a daily basis for our players, we think we're better. So if you go to Ajax, and I know last year Ruben Jonkin was here presenting, we work in what we call wheels now. 8 to 12 is one wheel, 13 through the maturation, the growth phase that Johan talked about is another wheel with Patrick Ledru heading that, and then we have Wim Jonk at the Bovenbouw in Dutch, but it's, let's say, the elite phase. And they're collaboratively. And now, the emphasis isn't on, did you win, you're a great coach, it is, did we as a team of coaches improve the performance of every individual player within our charge? So we look at individual development within the team concept. And here's the irony, because I know the naysayers in the crowd said that because I had to address this with the president of the club we work with in South Africa. Yeah, but I want results this Saturday. I said, you've got results this Saturday for the first team. There's no way that you can do that with the youth because you're not going to hire an 8-year-old to play for your first team or a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old. By the nature of the organization, youth development is long-term development. So the metric of wins and losses, which is the metric of the first team, should not be the most important metric of your under-12 team. The most important metric is, because of your training and facilitation and support and guidance as a mentor and as a guide for this young man and woman or girl, he got better and you can demonstrate it. Because you've tested them early when they came into you, and you and your team of coaches has facilitated their 100%. And whether their 100% is good enough for elite football, time will tell. But you'll never do a disservice to a child because you've maximized their potential, whatever that potential would be, without discarding them as an individual, but holding them accountable for the performance standards of the collective. And it's easy to say, I can say it again, we focus on individual development within the team concept, not team management. And as easy as that to say, it's the biggest paradigm shift for coaches that we've worked with in 3 different continents now to really grasp. But I want my team. What am my team, my weekend, my result? I'm rewarded for wins and losses. Well, that's part of the organization structure. So we look at it like this. Right? Again, I'm not suggesting that this is the only way to do it, but this is the way that we do it. Because we think this encourages, if not even forces, collaboration, maximizing the potential of the coaching staff in order to maximize the development of the individuals within their charge. And the performance indicators are, did each and every player in your charge for the time that they were with you show demonstrated improvement in their talent development such that they really feel in control of their set of mastery of skills and the demonstration of the positive habits which we've held them accountable for. And then finally, let me go to this just briefly and then we'll conclude with the video, is I don't want to go too much, but is everybody aligned to put football first? And how many of you are administrators in the club or administrators in the federation? Raise your hand, be proud. Okay, a few of you? Okay, I'll tell you what's most alarming about this usually is you take a piece of paper and typically your organizational chart has CEO or president or owner up here. And then somewhere down on that organizational chart as you flow down, you know, the head of coaching, the first team coach, head of youth. You know what it looks like, right? You take any corporation in Norway, it's probably the same. And then down here, sometimes the organizational chart doesn't even list footballers. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? In a football club, the organizational chart doesn't even have footballers on their organizational chart. So now you can imagine the looks that I get when I go into an organization like the board of Ajax, for example, and said, guess what? Footballers are the most important, and you're in the service of their development. Woo! I already see some administrators going, yeah, I thought, you know, I'm the CEO. I've been in the club for 30 years. I'm 60 years old, I'm 40 years old, I'm 50 years old. I've worked my way up the ladder. Well, if you don't have a role to play directly in the development of an individual within football, then I would suggest that maybe your position isn't as important as you've given yourself the title to include. And I know that's not very nice to hear if you're a federation or an organization, but it's what we believe and it's part of the battle of making sure. So our technical heart here is this. Restructuring organizations so that people that are running the organization, be it at the board or be it the volunteer group, manages the club as it needs to be managed, and it's very important. But when it comes to football matters, we create a technical heart, and let's just give you an example. Frank de Boer, the first team, Mark Overmars is appointed to work with him in selecting and choosing and buying and selling and developing players. First team coach is Frank de Boer, who has all of the pressure and responsibility to win a 4th consecutive league title in Holland, try to get the youngest team in the Champions League out of the first phase. We'll see. And the youth coaching staff then is connected by Dennis Bergkamp, who is his assistant. So there's a direct liaison between the first team and the youth. The youth head coaching staff is Wim Jong, former player that played with Dennis Bergkamp. And then you have the youth football staff. And these are the people that decide football. This is what we call the technical heart. So when we're talking about football, football players, football developments, it's not the CEO, it's not the guy that's a lawyer that now thinks that he knows a lot about football because he's been appointed to the board, with all respect to lawyers. It's the people that are engaged with football, given the responsibility and accountability to develop footballs, to create homegrown talent and maximize the potential of the organization. And this might even apply to a federation. I don't know if anybody's from the Norwegian. I probably shouldn't use that example because I don't know anybody and I want to get on my plane safely. But this is usually most offensive to the people at the top when they're all of a sudden put at the bottom because you feel like you're going down. I don't look at it that way. I think it gives you a very clear purpose as to why you're in an office doing the very important things you're doing to administer football, but not to forget that that's the administration of football and not the execution of a talent development program. Okay? Finally, this is just a quote about Johan, from player to coach to advisor. This I don't think really requires too much explanation. And hearing him speak, you can understand the clarity and also the enthusiasm in the way he looks. He looks a lot like when you talk, I always notice this, when you see his eyes talk about the youth, he goes someplace else, like I was watching the chess player on that. It's like you're not quite sure if they're there or not because they're going through so many concepts in their mind and getting excited. There's still a youth about him at 66 years old when he talked about football. And then that will be the final part of the conversation. So I want to thank you. I want to hope that Norway has a great success moving forward. Even our English friends, hopefully. Tough couple of friendlies you had there, but hopefully everything goes well when we get to Brazil. The teams that are closest to my heart, I live in Barcelona, so my friends on the Spanish team are headed. My roots are from the United States, and so my American friends made it through. And of course, my wife and my boss are Dutch, so Holland will be well represented. And I lived in England for a year, so my actually Liverpool friends are quite happy. And then next time I think Norway maybe can raise the cup. One last homework assignment. Stand up one last time. This is the conclusion. Shake hands left hand, shake hands right hand. One last time before lunch. Okay, now one hand up, the other hand up. Clap as hard as you can. That just assures I go home feeling good. Thank you.